Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. You're watching Better for America, sponsored by AMAC. And today we're live at CPAC. This is day two. I am thrilled to be joined right now by this amazing warrior, independent investigative journalist, Fox News contributor, our friend Sara Carter. It's great to have you with me, Sara. Thank you for being here.
It's great to be with you. It's great to be with you. I'm so excited to be here at CPAC. This is such an important year, I think, for everyone across the country, which is why I'm traveling the whole country, coming to CPAC, ensuring that I'm reaching out to as many people to let them know, 2024, this is it. We got to bring our nation back. So I think this is so important right now.
There's so much that we need to do now because if we don't win back the White House, the Senate, Congress as a whole, I think this country is definitely so far gone in so many ways. We know what's happening at the southern border. We know that over 7 million, people are saying perhaps 10 million, as many as 10 million illegals have crossed our border and have come over into this country illegally. And when we poll our members, this is their number one concern. Now, you have done so much work. You've had your eyes on the border, and you're from Texas. You're in Texas. So I'm curious, can you sort of unpack what's happening in Texas specifically? Tell us a little bit about the great work that Governor Abbott is looking to put in place to really secure Texas and the rest of America.
You said a lot of very important things right there, and it is the most important issue across the country, no matter where I travel, whether it's Iowa, New Hampshire, whether it's Chicago, Oakland, San Francisco, Denver. I can keep on naming different cities I've been in just this year alone. And I'll ask people, what is the biggest concern you have right now? What are you most worried about, especially during a presidential election year? And they will tell me the border. Why? Because it's not just at the border. And this goes to Governor Greg Abbott. You know, Governor Abbott wanted to make sure that the nation knew what was happening at our border.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, number one, it's like you can't keep hiding people in buses and then shipping them in the dark of night or during the day with, blacked out windows. So you don't see the number of people that are pouring into our country.
Many of them single young males. We don't necessarily.
From all over the world.
Right. Yes.
From all over the world. This isn't your farmers. This isn't your agricultural workers that we used to see, maybe 20 years ago or so, that would come across, work the farms, go back home. You would see a lot of single males then. But now what we're seeing is an influx of people from almost every nation on planet Earth. You have people coming across the border from Syria, Afghanistan,
China even.
China's huge. The increase is astounding. I mean, right now we're seeing tens of thousands of Chinese, mostly male, coming across the border. And look, you don't just leave China. You don't just get up one morning and say, you know what, I think I'm going to travel thousands of miles, get to Mexico, and then come across the border illegally from China. You just don't do it. It's a credit system. You can't travel outside of China unless you have the appropriate credit and money to leave China. So the Chinese government under President Xi Jinping is well aware of what's happening here. And our intelligence community is too, Rebecca, because they have to assess at the end of the day that a lot of what we are seeing and what President Biden has allowed to happen is weaponized migration. And I don't think people are talking about it enough. There is a deep concern that not only have we allowed terrorists, and we know that because we've apprehended them, both at the northern and southern border since Biden has been in office, roughly 400 plus that we have encountered. That doesn't include the people that have made it through.
That's right.
Right? And so I think Governor Abbott did a phenomenal job. The first step was saying, hey, if you're a sanctuary city, you support Biden's policies, we're going to put your money where your mouth is. Yeah. Let's send them all over. So we saw it with Eric Adams in New York. And then Mayor Eric Adams is like, wait a minute, what just happened here?
Yeah.
Like, I can't handle this. Oh, and granted, he'll argue we were a sanctuary city way before just to get migrants to report crime. That's really why New York City became a sanctuary city, because one of the things that they were afraid of was, illegal migrants or illegal aliens at the time, because those were people that did not have permission, like Biden is given permission right now, would get into the city and they would be terrified to report a crime and that they would be then sent back home, right? They would be outed, so to speak. So they started this whole idea of sanctuary cities. But then it became a very radical leftist perception of sanctuary cities. It was like, not just bring us, bring us all of you who are hungry, who are searching for a better way of life. It wasn't just the Statue of Liberty, it wasn't just that. It was, we're going to put you here and we are going to protect you not only from deportation, but there were people that were committing crimes that were being harbored inside these cities. We saw a rise in crime and in death. And it was like they were bent on sticking to it. They weren't going to change it.
And they went after the police officers as an example, saying we're going to defund, we're going to do everything in our power to what I call is really attack American citizens, because when American citizens aren't protected, when law and order goes out the door, and we're prioritizing illegals over Americans.
Well, it is out the door.
This is a problem. And this is why we see our cities really crumbling. They're falling apart, and it's only getting worse. When we look at how many people are coming over the border, and we recognize that impacts hospitals, they're going to emergency rooms for care. Schools are being flooded with young children who can't speak the English language. That puts our children who are trying to learn at a great disadvantage.
Exactly.
The list goes on.
Yeah, no, the list, and schools are being flooded. I was in New York City. I was at PS 133. I won't forget this. I'm getting there. I'm doing this for Sean's show, right? Yes. Sean Hannity. And I get to the school, and the gym is filled with single males from Venezuela, from all over the world. 10 feet away is the entrance to the elementary school. The kids are in session. Their entire gymnasium has been taken over by single male illegal migrants who crossed illegally into the United States, but then, they're being allowed to stay here by the Biden administration, so they're migrants now. And there was alcohol outside the gym, in the streets. One of the neighbors was like, I'm outside every morning sweeping up their cigarette butts in front of my house, picking up their beer bottles, they're drinking around, look, I am not saying that every single person that crosses that border.
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, why are you putting exposing children to people who have not even been properly vetted? And secondly, why are you exposing our country to people we have no idea where they're from? We have no idea who they are. They're coming from war-torn nations. They could be associated easily with a terrorist organization or an adversarial nation. We have spies pouring across the border. Russia does the same. I mean, this is Russia, China. They could utilize that border for anything. And it's very well known that, China has been targeting our installations. So even if people make it across the border, we're not able to verify or vet who they are. There could be men within those groups that are going to take residence in Texas, for example. Remember China?
Oh, yeah.
A former Chinese general purchased a huge amount of land, over 130,000 acres, I believe, right outside of Laughlin Air Base. We had to put a stop to him putting up his windmill project, supposedly. We had the Chinese government, even under Obama, but it wasn't even actually removed until President Trump's office, Brendan Carr, started to notice what was going on, put in Huawei 5G systems in Montana, up in our cell towers, right in an area where our ICBM nuclear capabilities are. We have 150 ICBMs in that area. So we have watched as China has purchased land in our country, expand. And look, it's not just that. It's that we have a government. We could point the finger all day long at our adversaries, right? But who's actually responsible for all of this is President Biden and horrible policies that put American people last and put everybody else first. And I think it puts them first more than the people that are crossing, right?
Well, that leads, many of our members say, why would a president do this? I mean, clearly it's done with intention. There's no question that leadership must recognize what's happening, the resources that are, the money that's being spent. So, a lot of people are saying, okay, well, perhaps he's hoping that he'll get more votes, right? I mean, is that it? Or is it really what Chuck Schumer said when Chuck Schumer said, we are going to fundamentally change America? America today is not what it looked like 3 years ago, 10 years ago. We just have gone so far. And I do believe that there is a spiritual war happening. I mean, there's no other way to explain or to justify. If it was really about caring about people, there would be a better system in place. There's not. Kamala Harris herself, the borders has not been down there. So I don't know that have the answer why. There is no real why. But when we look at what Abbott is doing, and we see that he is actually fighting the federal government, where is that? Where are we at? Where is he at? And what do you expect will happen between now and, say, November?
Well, first of all, I think Governor Greg Abbott has done a phenomenal job. I think it's been very, very difficult. There are laws in place that made it almost impossible for him. I know everybody said he should have called this an invasion, a while back, before this, before that. He couldn't. He was actually dealing with very real legal issues that actually, and I'm not a lawyer, but what it does, it goes back all the way to the 1800s, which guarantees some very extraordinary rights in a bizarre way to illegal aliens that are attempting to enter the United States. So I think what Governor Greg Abbott did was brilliant. He said, okay, I'm going to protect my state. I am going to because the federal government isn't doing its job. It's abdicating its job. It basically, and I personally think it's a dereliction of duty on the part of President Biden and the administration, what has happened in the United States. So Governor Greg Abbott went ahead with Operation Lone Star, Texas DPS, got his local and state, his National Guard ready, and said, we are going to shut down this border. Try and stop me. And we're going to do it in such a way that you won't be able to interfere with my ability as a governor to protect my constituents. And it really placed the president in a corner, right? Because if President Biden decides, and they just kept unrolling. I was down there at Eagle Pass. I'm at Shelby Park quite often. I love the state of Texas. That's why I moved there. For me, I didn't get there fast enough. I love being there. I love the people. And I'm down there, and our National Guard, instead of what I witnessed several years ago, where our National Guard was just basically stuck bringing people across, taking them from the smuggler and letting them come in because you had children, you didn't want them to drown. There was an issue with the Rio. What happened was they actually brought these National Guardsmen and said, nope, we're going to let you do your job. You're going to roll out the concertina wire. You are going to guard our nation from this invasion. And we are and let me tell you, there was some concern at first. They're like, what is Border Patrol going to do? Or what if President Biden federalizes, the National Guard and all of a sudden forces them to cut down the concertina wire? And I was like, well, that's a great advertisement for President Donald Trump, right?
Yeah.
Because he could use that and show America what they're doing. That's why they're not moving. And Border Patrol agents, when I'm down there, and they are working and doing they have the toughest job I've ever seen. Just really incredible men and women with the Border Patrol. Their morale has been just shot down so low because of this administration. And I asked them, if you were told to cut down that concertina wire by Mayorkas, they don't like him very much.
No.
Or by the DHS, would you do it? Would you stand up to the state? Because you're the feds, would you stand up to the state? No way. We don't want to do it. So as you can see, You know, everything that people were afraid of, right?
Yeah.
In the end, the decision by Governor Greg Abbott to one, send the busloads of migrants to Chicago, to New York, to Denver. I mean, look, they wanted, you
Yeah.
know, they supported this open border policy, and now people are waking up. I go to Denver. I was just there several weeks ago. People were amazing. And they were saying, look, we don't have the room for all these migrants.
Yeah.
And these are people that, if we play our cards right, are going to be Republican voters. These are independents, these are Democrats that are watching Venezuelan men panhandle in the street now because Biden brought all of these, 8 to 10 million? I guarantee in the end, it's going to be so much more than that. You know, people into our nation that they don't even have jobs now. And hundreds of millions of our taxpayer dollars, the hardworking men and women, AMAC, you know, folks, our money is going to support them, not our citizens,
That's right.
but strangers.
Strangers who don't really love this country, or we
And
don't
don't
know,
abide the law.
and don't abide by the law. That's so important. I want to just touch on one other aspect of illegal entry into this country, and it's something that it bothers me so much as a mother, as a grandmother. We know that there are children who are being trafficked. We understand that they're owned by these cartels. I don't know that a lot of people really believe that, Sarah. I don't know if people really can wrap their brains around something so evil. Because it's so evil, it's so hard to imagine that there could be this whole real underground system that involves money, making a lot of money, and it involves the selling and buying of children. What do you know? You've been up and close. Tell us, if you could, a little bit more. This is real.
This is very real. I have a young woman that I work with often, and she's amazing. She is with my friend Rosie Orozco. She lives in Mexico. Her name is Zunduri. And when she was a little girl, this is so that people get this, to understand really what is going on. When she was a little girl, she was taken around the age of 12, and she was shackled in a dry cleaning, and I'm talking about human slavery at this point, shackled in a dry cleaner in Mexico. She was on her way, trying to make her way to the U.S. She was shackled to a dry cleaner. She was beaten, raped, and abused for years. They burned her with hot irons on her face, on her head. The abuse was so extensive that it's unimaginable. She is now an advocate. She's spoken at the Vatican. She has traveled with my friend Rosie Orozco, who is a former congresswoman of Mexico, and told her story. She's one of millions of children that have been harmed. Either they've lost their lives trying to make their way through the Darien Gap, their bodies left there to rot, names forgotten, never even investigated. There have been children that have been so brutally raped. One child in particular, Tom Homan and I were part of a group now, Border 911, but Tom recounts the story. And this child was under the age of 2 and had come into the United States. And by the time the baby had drowned in the Rio Grande with the mother, and Tom recants the story. And I just want people to understand the reality of what happens to some of these children. And I'm not saying all of these children, but I'm saying a lot of these children. This child had been brutalized and raped. They found at least 12 different evidence of different men that had harmed that child, and I'm being very careful how I'm talking here, and every single bone in that baby's body was broken.
Oh, Lord
from the
God.
violence.
Oh, God.
I have met children on that border, Rebecca, that I've had to turn to Border Patrol, turn them into Border Patrol. So this is the reality of what happens when human traffickers, by the way, human trafficking and the sale of children is a billions, hundreds of billions of dollar industry. It makes more money to traffic a human being than even narcotics.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the switch. So our president and our administration, and every time we turn our head away because the stories are too hard to bear.
Yeah.
And they really are. Because
I know it.
I didn't want to go here, but when you see a child's face
Right.
and they're pleading for someone to save them.
And we have a president who does.
And I asked myself, if you care, if you truly love these children,
Yeah.
if you care about what is happening to our children in our country, take the power away from the cartels and the human traffickers. Give it back to our nation. There is a reason for rule of law.
Amen.
Rule of law protects everyone. It protects them. It protects us. We should be the envy of the world. We shouldn't be the nation that purchases the most children, right?
That's right.
For nefarious purposes. And we shouldn't be the people that turn our heads away from what God is calling us to do. And I think that's the reason why, the movie The Sound of Freedom was such a blockbuster. I think there is hope. And I think, my friend Eduardo Verástegui, and I see him praying all the time. I love you, Eduardo, and he prays every night. But I think the reason why that film did so well is because we are good people.
Yes.
We're the greatest nation on earth. But I'm afraid we've become complacent, and I'm afraid we become disheartened, and that we need to get out of that. We need to get out of that. And I'm going to say just one more thing, and I promise I'll let you ask another question. I tell everybody when I speak now that our silence is our enemy's greatest weapon against us. That every time we close our mouth and we don't say something, or we're afraid to stand up for something that we truly believe in, because we don't want to be ostracized by our friends. We don't want to be fired by our job. And I understand that. We don't want our families to look at us. I just want you to remember that every time you're silent, everybody else around you remains silent. That all you have to do is have the courage to speak up just a little, and everybody else will come in and join like a chorus, right?
That's right.
That's what you do.
The only thing necessary for evil to really prevail is for good men, good women to do nothing.
Yes.
We have got to make sure that we're voting for people who want to protect the border. We've got to make sure we're doing the right thing. Sara, before we let you run, you're so busy. Tell us a little bit of sneak peek into what you'll be talking about. You will be a speaker here, as I understand, at CPAC.
I beat you to it. I was supposed to do today, but we did it yesterday. Tom Homan.
Wonderful.
I know you have been busy interviewing everyone, so everything switched around. So it was Tom Homan and I, Chairman Mark Green, and Julio Rojas, who was amazing, our moderator. And we talked about the border, and we kind of laid it out for everyone. Tom and the chairman were fantastic. I think it's great. We saw an impeachment of Mayorkas.
All right.
Even if the Senate doesn't, it was a very strong statement.
Yes.
And it said, you're done. We're done with you. It was what we expect our lawmakers to do for us. So we talked about that. So look, we're on a trajectory for a win.
Amen.
Rebecca, we are.
That's good news.
We are.
Yeah.
We just have to believe. We have to get out there and fight, just like you say every day. I'm always reading your newsletter. I'm always,
Wonderful.
I am there because I know AMAC's doing the good fight. You're fighting the good fight. So it just requires every single one of us to do the same thing, and to stand up and to take this fight out into the public and be
we can't give up.
relentless, right? We can't give up.
It's
we
now.
cannot give up.
This is our time.
This is it, November.
That's it. Sara Carter, thanks again for being here with us. And to all of you tuning in, we'll be back with some more great interviews in just a few moments.